Theories, methodologies, architectures, and technologies that transform raw data into meaningful and useful information. Enormous amounts of unstructured data to identify, develop, and otherwise create new strategic business opportunities. Imagine what this could mean to your business, the interpretation of volumes of data that could ultimately identify an effective strategy, provide a competitive market advantage, or even impact your long-term business success. Greetings, everyone. It's Friday, July 11, 2014, and this is Tech Talk with Technology Association of Georgia President Tino Mantella. I'm your guest host, Frank Baia. This edition of Tech Talk takes you on a data journey through the integration of business intelligence consulting, data analytics, business processes, the people, and the technology, all the way to your greatest potential and opportunity. As we meet Lee Blackstone, CEO and co-founder of Blackstone+Cullen, a business analytics consulting firm that empowers organizations with the data and insights they need to make competitive business decisions. Blackstone+Cullen was recently recognized by CIO Review magazine in their CIO Big Data 100, listing of companies in the forefront tackling big data challenges and impacting the marketplace. Lee has a passion for driving client success with a career spanning 20-plus years working for Fortune 50 companies and 25 years as an entrepreneur. His broad and deep global industry experience makes him uniquely qualified to provide consulting leadership that brings cross-industry solutions to complex problems. Join us as Lee navigates us on a data journey that brings the art of global business and the science of data to acquire, analyze, report, and predict what success looks like. From understanding what your company really wants to accomplish to just how to search and select the right business and technology partner for your business intelligence journey. From the hot buzz of today to looking ahead to new opportunities and applications, small project or major implementation, the Tech Talk turns to how to navigate your data into the actual insights you need to create success. As we speak with CEO and co-founder of Blackstone+Cullen, Lee Blackstone. This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Lee, welcome to Tech Talk.
It's great to be here today.
Well, congratulations. The company's celebrating 25th anniversary. Quite an accomplishment with all the radical changes and quote-unquote disruptions that have been happening in so many of our industries, especially when the challenge is to take the complex and provide simple solutions that you do so quote-unquote elegantly. But tell us about how you've navigated the firm's model and drove your company in terms of long-term success.
When we first got started 25 years ago, we began to understand that the world revolved around the data, and company success revolved around their ability to produce actionable data and be able to actually accomplish something and move ahead in their business world. We have kept data as the central point of the company throughout. We provide not only the technology, but the people and the resources and the processes to bring the data to light so it becomes actionable for executives.
So one of the things that have obviously become hot terminology is analytics. We're now into predictive analytics. So obviously you've watched your purpose in terms of the importance of data gradually go from unstructured to structured to the point where it's literally driving the digital economy. Talk a little bit about the buzz around big data and maybe some of the examples of the projects that you guys have worked on.
Well, we've been involved with big data since the inception of the company, and we built data warehouses for guys like Bell South, Wachovia, 3M, people like that. So the migration from reporting, which is really I'm going to look at existing data, or I'm going to look in the rearview mirror of what actually happened in the past, to what's actually happening right now, to predicting what's going to happen in the future. And then I like to take it one step further, and that is prescribing what you do when you see a certain condition in your business. So we've effectively taken the predictive models, which we've been doing for 15 years or longer, and moved those more into the prescriptive world, where you lay out exactly what you're supposed to do and how someone's supposed to react to a specific set of business conditions.
That's pretty fascinating. So we've moved from predictive to prescriptive, pretty much to the point where, are we talking cognitive? Has it gotten to the point where actually it's a case where so many of the things are the outcome of just pure deductive reasoning? And where does decision-making fit in a scenario like that?
In many cases, it's like that. But if you think about one of the cores that we focus on is being able to take the knowledge from one industry and take it to another. And if you step back and you look at the process control industry, they've been doing this forever. If you're running paper through a paper mill and the paper's wet, you're trying to figure out what do you do to dry that paper out before it's rolled on the reel at the other end. There's about 25 things that you can do, from changing the speed of the paper, making the fans run faster, heating the rollers, and it goes on and on and on. Now,
I guess it's silly to imply that there's not subjective influences that happen in an environment like that, but you don't have the human component involved in that, right? So it's a little bit of a different deduction, for lack of a better.
In some cases it is, but the human is the guy on the original design side that has to design that in, and he has to understand if that paper mill is out of spec, what do you do to fix it?
I got you.
Now we talk to senior executives and a CEO recently of a major organization with 5,000 locations. I asked him, what do you do when you see a red light condition on one of your 5 key areas that you measure in your company? And I got a deer in the headlight look. And it was like, you've got to prescribe a condition or an action in case you're out of town. Who is going to solve the problem? Today, Tino was out of town. The prescriptive engine for that is Frank takes over, and we move on. And that needs to be part of what's built into the actionable portion of business going forward. And that's what we're building into, not only the predictive models, but the prescriptive models. We're starting on the prescription and actually working backwards. So you take the executive, write the prescription on what he's supposed to do at the CEO level, then you do all of his direct reports. And if they say, I actually had somebody last week say, I don't do that. My people are supposed to do that. And it was like, well, if your people don't know how to do that, what do you tell them to do? What do you do when this condition hits? And so we've been doing this now for a long time with one of the major software companies out in Seattle, to prescribe to them how they should respond to certain sales conditions.
Now, again, I'm fascinated by maybe just a subtle thing to you, but it just seems like there's sort of a blatant space between certain human decision-making or human analytics, if you will, for lack of a better description, and, say, process analytics. Say, for example, let's talk a little bit about the Internet of Things. When you're talking about a situation where you've got a cognitive environment in which pretty much, and I'm primitively describing it, sensors are driving each one of the facts or information that are constantly being evaluated throughout the infrastructure, and then that alone is driving reaction or decisions, if you will. How does that make a difference in terms of, say, for example, well, I'm thinking as you were talking, I was in a conversation the other day with people from the Weather Channel, and they were actually talking about how they're going to be using weather predictions, if they can make weather predictions properly. I don't know if you might want to help them, because I jokingly say sometimes they don't always get it right unless you step outside. But that said, they're talking about using weather predictions in terms of how it affects mood, and mood affects buying habits. So like, for example, they want to have analytics on what the weather's going to be like so that Macy's knows what merchandise to sell on a particular day.
I completely concur with that. That's been historically how you look at some of the more complex predictive models is If it does rain, for example, how does that impact the buying habits of a certain individual? If you've got a cold strike, how does that impact it? Those are broader models that have got some capability of doing some prediction, but it's still, if you see that, what do you do? My favorite one is if Home Depot notices on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock that hammers are really selling well on the end cap in Atlanta, can they respond fast enough to put the hammers on the end cap in Dallas before 9 o'clock? So those are the kinds of things in a business-to-consumer world. And I will say that one of the places we've spent a lot of time is on the business-to-business space, where we can now, with a reasonable set of accuracy, predict what a customer will buy next and how they're going to go through that process.
Now, in that kind of relationship, certainly you run into situations where you got a company that maybe understands what a company really wants to accomplish, but they just are not sure, or they don't say or think they want to accomplish. I mean, they don't know that. Is that where the predictive comes in, or the prescriptive, rather, comes in?
A lot of times the sales cycle to sell a project like that gets to be somewhat extended because you're exactly right. The people don't know, in many cases, what they should be thinking about and how they should be attacking the problem. And it's not always incredibly complicated arithmetic. And, that's my way of saying nasty math, high-end statistical work. But it's not always really high-end, ugly statistical, multiple regressions and factor analysis and things like that. A lot of times it's just elegantly simple solutions and common sense practices.
Well, in a challenging situation for, a first-generation entrepreneur, or even a seasoned executive that has held several key positions, faced with all of the dynamics that are involved and some of the cliches that I often say the semantics don't keep up with the speed of technology. They're almost hard to describe. I guess where I'm headed is, if I'm a business leader and I'm looking for a business or technology partner, how do I figure out where to go and who do I need to talk to as far as, say, my latest project or business opportunity?
I would say find somebody that can speak your language. I just wrote a paper, and it talked about if you throw a data scientist in the room with a CEO, what do you get? And the answer is not much, because they speak two languages.
I was going to say.
They don't speak the same language. With the experience that we have in the market, we can bridge that. My world started as back in the world of data science, but also at the same time I ran the global accounts program for Hewlett-Packard. So I had a large global view of large business doing severe analytics against those, constantly. So I think that's one of the things that we have that's unique is when we walk in to talk to a customer, it's not that we're the first time there. We've probably solved that problem 25 or 30 times during our career.
Sure, gotcha. Yeah.
And there's a big difference between somebody that's done it 25 or 30 times and somebody that just shows up and says, tell me what your problem is. We're more in terms of talking about the issues, because you can give somebody a problem and it's easy to solve. If you talk about understanding global business issues and how to analytically decompose those, that's a different class of problem or a different class of scenario that you're dealing with.
Well, and trust and confidence plays such a major role when you're dealing in an unknown. To have somebody that has, quote unquote, not your first rodeo and not only can provide the answers but has a track record of having done it and performed with results, certainly it's got to make that responsibility transfer, if you will, for lack of a better description, a whole lot easier to make.
Right.
I'm going to wrap it up here quickly, but I was thinking to myself, is it really fair to ask you to look ahead? Do you actually have to do some prescriptive analytics for yourself in terms of your own plans for the future? But I'm going to throw out a question to you, and that is, what do you see as some of the new opportunities and, say, some of the new applications for your company?
I think there will continue to be opportunity to build on the things that we've built on historically, the knowledge base that we've built on, especially companies that are taking product through, for example, secondary channels. or distribution or franchises. We built up quite an understanding and expertise specifically in that world, but that in addition is transferable to companies that are doing distributorships, for example. So it's a combination of expanding through vertical markets, through geographies, through new technologies, and I think it's one you have to be able to look at that from a global perspective because we are truly in a global economy. And again, in the company that we work with out of Redmond, we literally operate in every country every day across every product line. And we're doing predictive and prescriptive models there. They're way ahead. If I could just help everybody else catch up, it's a great big market out there.
Does culture play a role in I guess, when analytics, the numbers are the numbers, right? I guess it's a case where when you do a prescriptive analytics in one country versus another, is a part of the consideration the cultural aspects of the anticipated decision? Or is
you bet your life. Yeah. No, you bet your life. Culture is paramount to making sure that you introduce it properly because poorly introduced technology or predictions or prescriptions into the workplace, if you do it the wrong way, will miserably fail.
Wow. Well, I can see where the predictive might be dictated by sheer numbers, but the prescriptive, wow, an epiphany there, Lee, because you'd have to realize that how you interpret those numbers is going to be way determined by the culture and how it is.
Very much so. And that's one of the things that's critical to understanding this.
Well, there's so many aspects. You almost take it for granted when you say it's that part is critical. I think when it comes to the abilities and the services that you provide, probably the best thing that anyone could do is understand what they don't know and reach out to an expert that's going to take care of it for them. Because the bottom line of it is that you're arming them with competitive advantages. And if they don't have that advantage, they're operating at a disadvantage. Lee, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. What an exciting thing for you to have watched over the last quarter century, see your vision and your big dreams develop into a reality and be a part of the evolution of that thought process and, in fact, be a thought leader in it. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for a few minutes today on Tech Talk.
Thanks, Frank. I really appreciate it, and I enjoyed our conversation.